Hey
Hey,
Rex,
hey Heidi, how you doing?
um, I'm okay. How are you?
But I'm really looking forward to talking with you. And she gives her love. She feels really bad. She wants to be part of these a lot more, and it will help. But she wasn't able to make it. She's upstairs resting. So
Well, I hope she feels better.
thank you, thank you. With that, where'd you grow up? Where are you from
I
originally?
actually, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. Um, Comparatively, it's a pretty big city compared to most. I grew up with both parents, but technically I'm one of eight kids, although in my house it was two for the most part. I have not been one for being an athletic person, but have I started out doing ballet when I was little.
Mhm.
My mom had me doing ballet starting when I was like 6 years old, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was doing ballet through high school, but anything outside of that, like any sports, was debilitating.
Mhm.
Um, I couldn't keep up, and I couldn't do anything like track, gym, anything in gym class knocked me out.
Really?
And people couldn't figure out why. They were like, why is she having a hard time? Why can't she go swimming without being exhausted? So, but we didn't know what the problem was. So I always felt held back, and it was really frustrating.
So that was your norm, even though you didn't have answers as to what was the cause of that, and how long did that kind of go on until you either got answers or you started experiencing other symptoms?
My parents did not like going to the doctor. They thought I was exaggerating. And so I didn't start getting answers for myself to the point where I realized I was actually in pain and tired all the time until I was 22, 23 years old.
Wow.
It was interfering with working, um, my being able to take care of my kid.
Hmm.
And, I was miserable.
You just had enough. You went in and started looking into what was happening. Started getting
I
answers.
needed answers. I needed answers. I needed to know why I was sleeping all the time, why I was so exhausted, why I was limping around, why I was just in horrible pain. And it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. So I needed to know. It wasn't normal to be like that at my age. So
Yeah.
I needed answers.
Time to kind of be your own advocate, right? And just
Yeah, I had to be.
well, some of the things that you've shared with me, and let me know if there's any other things that you've been diagnosed with. But lupus, fibromyalgia, um, essential tremors, ankylosing spondylitis, chronic
Hmm.
migraine, rheumatoid arthritis, and then even mixed with some anxiety disorder, bipolar.
Hmm.
Um, and then you had two brain tumor surgeries. Um,
Hmm.
and all of this has really made you not only an amazing mother and family and friend, but you've really become a great advocate in the chronic pain community. You've stood out to us. We wanted to have you and your story with others that you can see are sharing theirs. Um, and quite the inspiration. So, talk to me a little bit about how that unfolded and how you learned of those things.
Um, Let me start with this. My family, primarily my father, did not believe in mental health. And I would stay up all night with my head just spinning, and I could not sleep. So I would not get any sleep as a child. My mother finally pitched a fit when my son is so much like my brother. Mm, Long story. Um, My brother was super hyperactive, so he finally got put on ADHD medication. And they were like, okay, well, he's medicated. Let's put her on something.
Hmm.
It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same thing. Um, I was not treated. I was not treated. I was considered the crazy girl in high school. I was super hyper, super manic all the time. And everybody was like, oh, she's just silly. She's just all over the place. She'll be fine. But I
Hmm.
wasn't sleeping. And finally, when I was always getting in trouble after high school, that was another situation. I ended up pregnant with my son when I was 19. And I was still somewhat doing what I needed to do, to survive in life, to do what I needed to do to survive, I had my son when I was 20. My health was still not okay. I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but I ended up getting very, very depressed after having my son. I went to a doctor, and what did he do? He put me on one medication that you do not give to a postpartum mother if they have bipolar disorder.
Mm.
And it sent me spiraling.
Had a reaction.
So
Yeah.
bad reaction. Number one sign you have bipolar disorder. And I'm not going to name that medication because that's a no-no.
Yeah.
But they were like, oh wow, she has bipolar disorder. Okay, well we're going to start treating that.
Wow.
Um,
That's how you learn
come,
about it.
yeah, but come to find out, I am monstrously allergic to most of the medications that you treat bipolar disorder with.
Wow.
So that was a long journey treating one thing, um, which was the beginning of another journey in
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Um, then I was starting to be treated for anxiety, which was another thing I was dealing with. Come to find out, I'm actually allergic to a lot of those medications. I had never really been on medication before in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so um, I was like, okay. I started having major issues with around the time I was 21, 22, started just being exhausted all the time. I was working all the time. I was like, okay, maybe this is the cause, but this is too much.
Yeah.
So I started going to the doctors, going to rheumatologists, fighting tooth and nail to get into doctors in Memphis is hard, but I found one. My back was in horrible pain, and I thought it was because of a wreck I was in 2001, my senior year in high school, that
Mm.
actually put a stop to ballet for me. We had Me and several of my friends had skipped school that day, and I got the brunt of it in the back seat, knocked me unconscious for a little while, and caused major cervical spine damage. That is, it's a pretty big deal now,
Yeah.
but it ended up being worse than just cervical spine damage. It ended up being ankylosing spondylitis, um, which is this the bones in my back want to fuse together, and it's like what's another form? It's like arthritis in the spine, but worse. So I found that out the hard way. I also found out I had lupus from that doctor, which explained a lot. To
Hmm.
find that out when you're 23 years old is a little bit unusual. Most people don't realize things like that when they're that young. They
Yeah.
find out when they're older. um, which was kind of good to find out those things to be able to be prepared for the long term. Um, the bad part was is I was also allergic to the medications to be treated for those things. Found that out the hard way. I ended up in the ER for many different medications. So I've been battling that one as well.
And what are some of the symptoms from lupus for those that are not familiar with lupus?
Um, there's many different kinds of lupus. The one that I get to deal with is um, the butterfly rash, uh, the skin rash that is just awful for me when I get a lupus flare up. It makes my skin just flare. It poofs up and the skin starts peeling. I
Oh,
just recently am coming down from a butterfly rash, thank God, because it was brutal.
wow.
And it can attack your major organs in your
Oh,
body.
yeah. It's really just a condition that kind of attacks itself in different ways, right? Yeah.
Yeah, your body's basically, essentially fighting itself, and it's it's not winning. Um, it's like your whole body just doesn't want to help itself.
Wow.
Um, it's scary. It
And
really is.
you've had, on top of all of that, as if that wasn't enough, you've had two tumors removed, brain tumors. Is
Well,
that
yeah. So I had two different types of tumors in the same exact spot. They were both um, smack in the center of my head. They had to do a transsphenoidal resection, which is where they go up through your nose, and it's really gross.
really? That's how they got to it, huh? No, they didn't have to cut into your skull. They
No, they did not. They had to go through my nose and drill through my sinuses and get to it behind my eyeballs. But it was in a very, very scary spot. They were um, the first one uh, was actually about. It started out about the size of a pea, and the whole reason they found it was because they were trying to find out why I was having essential tremors.
and what's essential tremors? Not to get
Essential tremors is my hands shaking. And the doctor was trying to find out why my hands were shaking.
okay, okay.
He just wanted to rule some things out. She ran an MRI. Yeah, she just happened to come across something that was next to my pituitary gland. She was like, "Oh, it's just a little cyst. It's not going to do anything."
Yeah.
It definitely got bigger. Um, so that tumor got so big that they were like, that needs to come out really fast." Um, and it was pressing on my optic nerves and a bunch of other things that could have made me go blind, pressing on the brain wall. So yeah, that one came out in 2015. 2 years later, I started having massive headaches again. They did another MRI, um, and they were like, "You have another one." I
So
was
did
like,
they test it?
"It was not cancer. It was not cancer.
Benign, but it grew. Was it basically the same one that kind of grew back, or was it just
No, it
it was
was a totally different one."
but in the same area?
And it
Same.
was in the same area, and this one was shoved over into a little bit different area, but it was in the same location, and it was not actually connected to my pituitary gland, which they usually refer to them as a pituitary tumor.
Mhm.
It was a macroadenoma, um, but it was not actually connected to the pituitary gland. So but it was still pushing on it, which affects all the hormones in the body.
Mhm.
I gained an insane amount of weight because of it. Thank you, tumor. Uh, but either way, it had tripled in size within 3 months, and we're glad we caught it because it could have killed me. And I was able to get that one out very quickly. It's great to the amazing doctors in the Houston area.
What they can do.
Yeah, we've got some amazing doctors in the Houston area, so we were able to get that one out very quickly. And that was in 2017.
Uh,
And I get my 35th MRI follow up next month to find out if I actually have another one because I am having symptoms. So hopefully, fingers crossed that I do not.
well, and blessing that they're benign, right? And could have found out that they were cancer, and then all of what would come with that.
Well, the scary thing is with macroadenomas is even if they're not cancerous, they still do massive damage. So
Mm.
that's the scary thing about tumors in your head. They still can do damage even if they're not cancer.
So what's day to day life like for you? You've gone through progressively finding out more and more things, oftentimes learning about them because of you trying to, deal with one thing. You may or may not. You don't have to share whether you have it, but challenges trying to get the benefit of medications that are helping people have a better, quality of life. So all of that leading kind of up to where you're at now. What is life like for you day to day? How have things changed?
Um, well, I have a hard time getting myself ready when I have to go somewhere. Um, it's a little bit humbling when I have to ask my daughter to help me get ready, like put my shoes and socks on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try to take my time. Learning to take your time is different because my brain's telling me to do one thing, to hurry up and go. My body's telling me to slow down. Um, as far as most people think, applying for disability is not an easy. Most people don't know that I am on disability now. And they really don't know that I actually started filing for disability when I was 24.
The process to get.
And I turned 40 this year. It's not easy, but don't give up because it may be hard to survive, but don't give up. Getting doctors to help you is not easy. But I'll tell you one thing, when I was going through finding a doctor to work on my head, I went and saw 4 different brain surgeons before I agreed to have one operate on my head.
Yeah.
I saw numerous doctors, numerous doctors trying to find out what was wrong with me. I never gave up. Trying to find out uh, why I had a locked shoulder. I saw 6 different doctors before finding out I have rheumatoid arthritis. They were just telling me one thing after another just to get me out of their office. Um, you have to be your own advocate. But life is unpredictable. And if it were not for the grace of God, I would not be here right now. I've actually I've actually learned a lot. Each experience I've gone through, each surgery, each trauma has made me grow and
Mm-hmm.
be prepared for the next. It's made me stronger. I may feel weak, but mentally I'm stronger. It's helped me be stronger for my kids that are both going through so much. Both of my kids have bipolar disorder. One of my kids has autism. Um, they, the emotional things that they're going through is so much more than I went through. And they're both teenagers, so they need more help than the average kid. And it's making me mentally more patient,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to be there for them more than my parents were for me. And I know that if it weren't for the things that I've been through, that I would not be able to be there for them and be there for the many people that are suffering right now that need someone to reach out to. There's so many people that are going through all kinds of crazy situations, and they're able to reach out to me just to ask for a little bit of help about any little thing, and I'm there. So I appreciate that, the fact that I've been able to grow
Do that.
and be there.
Have that empathy for
Mhm.
people.
I have got to tell you, this has actually been a problem in my family getting
Mm,
to know what's wrong with me,
yeah. Tell me.
because there have been numerous cousins in my family, my mom's cousins, and even in my ancestors. There's this thing called don't talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently, a ton of my mom's cousins have major health problems that they just don't talk about,
Hush
be
it.
it mental health issues, lupus, fibromyalgia, ankylosing spondylitis, that they just don't talk about.
Yeah.
But my grandfather died when he was 42 of kidney failure, but they wouldn't talk about the exact cause. Well, they called it something else, but back then, I mean, it was pretty long ago. We also didn't talk about the fact that despite my grandmother being an alcoholic and she died of Alzheimer's disease, she also was diagnosed with something else prior to having Alzheimer's disease, which was way worse than essential tremors,
Mm.
um, which I probably needed to know about to tell
Genetic
my rheumatologist.
for sure.
Um, there's so many things that genetically are passed down generation to generation that our parents and grandparents were just instilled in them. Don't talk about it. We don't talk about that. But we need to talk about it. We need to talk about the mental health. We need to talk about the physical health. Because if we don't, how are we supposed to learn about it? How are we supposed to learn how to cope with it properly? It's it's not healthy. It's not mentally healthy for anyone. Social media has been really helpful. um, Facebook. Ah, love Facebook. The Facebook community has been really helpful because information is spread very quickly. So as soon as I started finding out exactly what I had and the details about it, I was sharing it like crazy. I'm like, look, this is what's wrong with me. You need to know what's wrong with me and why I feel like garbage all the time. And then it started spreading and spreading and spreading. And then there were groups with information. And I was like, there's this whole world out there. But I I want people to know that there's also the mental health factor. And there is, and it's sad to say that so many people are losing their lives to this,
Mm-hmm.
not just from the health aspect, from the mental health aspect, because they give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Suicide
can't,
way too
they
high.
can't take it.
Yeah.
And the numbers are way too high. And they can't take the pain, the frustration, and they need to know that there is a better tomorrow. It might not be immediate, but there is a better tomorrow. And there are people there for you. They might not be the people that are immediately surrounding you, and you might have to kick them to the curb. We have to set boundaries. We absolutely have to set boundaries because if the people you have around you aren't going to be there for you and aren't lifting you up and supporting you and helping point you in the right direction, then why do you have them there? The people you have in your life need to be your cheerleaders and not drag you down.
Yeah.
There's an amazing nonprofit that a friend of mine has been working on here locally in my area. She lost her son a little over a year ago, and it's called Sunset Cowboy. And she has been working on this for a little while now, and it's to help get mental health resources together. And it's going to be amazing
Wow.
because it's it's to help people who are dealing with all kinds of situations, not just you know not just for people who are having problems getting uh, you know how do I say this, a psychiatrist or a therapist, group therapy, all kinds of things, maybe for people who have first responder experience or military problems or people who have major health problems that need that help and they're
Yeah.
not getting it. So, because she also has lupus, she's going through some of the major traumas that I've gone through, and she knows exactly how it feels to not be able to get that little bit of help that you need. So, I can't wait to see what comes out of that. So, I've been helping her a little bit with that, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. I remember that giving of myself is also self care. And I know that sounds weird to some. They're like, how is that actually self care? But it is, and it is for me. Every day we do a daily devotional on TikTok, and that's self care for me because at the same time as I'm doing devotional, I'm also sharing with other people, and that's my form of self care. Now, I know that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people,
Hmm.
but it is for me. It is for me.
You get filled by serving.
Yeah, I do get filled by serving. That phrase, a smile can brighten someone's entire day and change their outlook on life just by passing by them and giving them a smile. Um, it's the same thing. An uplifting word, um, just sending them a funny meme or
Hmm.
sending them a quote to lift them up can change their entire day. People need to remember that. It's important to see the small things and appreciate the small things in life, especially when you know that you're probably not going to be around as long as some people. I know that I'm not. My outlook on life has definitely changed when doctors say, hey, you might not be sticking around on this earth as long as the average human. You might have about 15 years left on you. It changes you a little bit. Um, and I'm okay with that. I've come to terms with that.
Yeah.
You know? But it makes you see that things are a little bit more special. Every little thing is a bit more special. A drive through a, a drive down a different street and you see things that most people don't see. Um,
It really is true.
every little thing you see with a different perspective. I was a photographer for 20 years and I saw things through a lens that people did not see.
Hmm.
And I have to use that as a comparison that I look for things and things that I saw the average person would just miss. So I tell people Go grab a camera. Go grab your phone that you would look for that picture that you would take.
Hmm.
That's how I see things now.
What are some of the goals that you have still?
Goals. I'm a little bit limited. People have a bucket list. They say they want to travel. I cannot get on an airplane because of how I had my surgery. Um, I am now not allowed to. I'm not allowed to fly.
Oh, really?
Um, so it's a little bit of a setback. Behind me, you can probably see all these little things. But those are a bunch of magnets that I've had friends and family members send to me from all the places they've traveled, and I have some from all over the world.
Wow.
And it's kind of my way of getting a piece from different places
Yeah.
because I can't go there, which
Oh,
is kind of cool because I'm like, hey, I have this piece of Europe, um, of this place of Asia. Like, I have places from all over the world, but I'll never get to go. And it hurts because I would have loved to travel. So I'm going to have to work on that because that's one of the things I always wanted to do was go to different places around the world. My life is completely what God meant it to be. And I will never, ever take it for granted. Um, I know that I will have many setbacks. It's always going to happen. And I will deal with the hand I was dealt, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
what's the most important lesson, Heidi, that you feel like that you've learned from all of this?
Oh, important, most important lesson. There's a quote that I read in high school that has stuck with me. And it's basically the same lesson. You can't choose your circumstances, but you can choose to overcome them. It's the same thing. You can choose to overcome them. There are so many resources that you might not have found. They might not be in your immediate area, but they are there to reach out to. You might just not have found one yet, but they are there. There's always, always hope. There's always going to be an arm stretched out to grab onto. So don't stop reaching out for help.